At that time in the North, we had devoted our resources and our energy to the liberation of the South in 1968. And when this could not be achieved, we certainly felt a little let down.
Looking back at it now, it is clear that the first objective, the liberation of the South, was not accomplished. But at that time, we did attack the command centers of the American forces and the puppet regime in the urban areas as well as in the provinces. We attacked the provincial headquarters, the Saigon Presidential Palace, the various secret police headquarters, and the radio stations. And in Saigon, we fought our way into the American Embassy, which was the most important American headquarters in the South. We were able to occupy all these places, but we could not hold them. Therefore, we did not gain enough time for the people to stage their general uprising.
For us, you know, strategy is never purely military. Our strategy is always a general and integrated strategy, simultaneously military, political, and diplomatic. Thus, the Tet Offensive of 1968 obviously had an objective that was both military and political.
As a military operation, the offensive had failed. The Southern Viet Cong guerrilla forces had surfaced to be killed or captured in large numbers. After 1968, the war was increasingly fought by North Vietnamese as a conventional conflict. The political goal of forcing President Thu to accept a coalition government also failed.
What they have realized in the city, that the people was against them. So I believe that the general uprising, they have a hope, have not happened. They have met with the anti-communist sentiment from the people in the city. So they fell in both countryside and city.
But even though it was a considerable military setback for the North Vietnamese and Viet Cong out there on the ground, it was in effect a brilliant political victory for them here in the United States. I'm not sure I fully understand the reasons why that should have occurred. But it became very clear after the Tet Offensive that many people at the grassroots, such as my cousins in Cherokee County, finally came to the conclusion that if we could not tell them when this war was going to end, and we couldn't in any good faith, that we might as well chuck it.
The Tet Offensive came as a brutal surprise to President Johnson and all of his advisors. We had been led to believe that the Viet Cong were pretty well defanged by that period, that the pacification program had worked very well, that most of the villages in South Vietnam were secure, and that it was virtually impossible for the Viet Cong to rise to the heights that they did in 1968.
The shock of the Tet attacks forced Johnson, the commander-in-chief, to seek refuge in the military. Johnson, the president, said nothing to the nation. Tet had crystallized the dilemma of the war. Johnson wanted victory, but his enemy, though rebuffed, was still not defeated. Could he win now without expanding the war and committing more troops?
At the time of the Tet Offensive, I asked for only those troops that were on the way to me anyway, that had been promised and had been organized and I asked that they be accelerated.
Johnson approved this request and sent off an airborne unit. But by now, Vietnam was draining America's overall military force. Johnson's generals pressed him to take a step he had always resisted, to call up the reserves, to gird the nation for a bigger war.